Enhancing Financial Innovation and Access is a financial sector development organization that promotes financial inclusion in Nigeria. EFINA, funded by the UK's Department for International Development, DFID, has a holistic approach to expanding access to financial services for all, especially for low-income households, using the following pillars: innovation, research, advocacy and capacity building, and digital financial services. A recent survey carried out by EFInA Trust through the I2I initiative in partnership with EFINA reveals that some Nigerian households are beginning to experience reduced income, lower food consumption, and reduced access to financial and health services following the onset of the COVID-19 epidemic and related lockdowns. The survey, conducted via mobile phones, was commissioned to generate more complete and inclusive data on how the COVID-19 pandemic is impacting on the lives of Nigerians. The survey is nationally representative of the Nigerian adult population, as more than 1,800 adults were surveyed between April 8 and 16 via telephone. Similar surveys were also carried out in Kenya and South Africa. To help us get a clear understanding of all of this, we be Ashley Immanuel, Head of Programs, Enhancing Innovation and Access. Good morning, Ashley. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes, good to have you on the morning show. Well, I referred in my introduction to a survey that your organization recently conducted on poverty levels, households, and other issues in the face of COVID-19 in Nigeria. Would you like to share some of your findings and recommendations with our viewers?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So thank you for having me. And you gave a very comprehensive overview of the survey. So I won't repeat everything, but as you mentioned, it was a nationally representative survey of Nigerian adults, and this was carried out in mid-April. So this was a few weeks into the start of COVID response and lockdowns in Nigeria. So in terms of overall findings, we can break it into a few different categories. First, in terms of understanding about coronavirus or COVID-19, a lot of Nigerians reported some understanding. So they said that they understood coronavirus or COVID-19 to be a virus or a disease. And many said that they had started modifying their behavior in response. So more than half reported washing their hands more frequently. Others reported, limiting physical contact with others, in some cases, using masks, avoiding large gatherings, etc. So we saw some awareness and some behavioral change. The other things that we measured in the survey were impact of coronavirus epidemic and related lockdowns on Nigerians and their households. So some of the major impacts that we saw was that we asked people in the week prior to them being interviewed, which was the first week of April, how had their income changed versus the same time in the prior year? And about half reported that their income had reduced, which isn't surprising because we know that many Nigerians earn income daily or weekly, and so with lockdowns, there was a lot of pretty rapid impact on income earning opportunities. But we thought that was an important finding. We also asked people if anybody in their household had eaten fewer meals as a result of not having enough food available. And almost half said somebody in the household had eaten fewer meals at least once in the past week, which is important and concerning because it indicates that people are feeling the impact of the crisis. Some of the other findings that we thought were important were in terms of agriculture. 64% of farmers said that they were experiencing some kind of difficulty selling their crops or their livestock, which can signal interruptions in agricultural supply chains, which can have implications for food security. Also, we worry about if farmers aren't able to sell their crops or their livestock profitably, that this might, if this continues and they're not able to make a profit this season, this might impact their ability to invest in planting for the next season. So this can have longer term impacts as well.
These are very, sorry, do go on,
sure.
Ashley.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say that these are very interesting findings that you've brought up here. I mean, you said that half reported reduced income since the COVID-19 pandemic started in Nigeria, and that's very worrying, which brings me to ask you about financial inclusion options and where we can identify some gaps that we've seen. Now, COVID-19 has highlighted Nigeria's very low mobile and technology penetration, even though it's much higher than it was 10 years ago. But clearly, there are still a lot of gaps that we have to fill when it comes to financial inclusion. So what has EFINA identified in that regard?
Yes, so EFINA has been focused on digital financial services as a core driver of financial inclusion in Nigeria. And as you mentioned, digital financial services is more widespread now than it was a decade ago, but we still have a lot of work to do. And one of the interesting findings, so this survey was carried out in Nigeria, but the same survey was also carried out in Kenya and South Africa. And we saw some differences in impact, especially in terms of access to financial services. We saw more Nigerians were saying that they had trouble accessing financial services because a bank branch or an agent was closed or had run out of cash compared to Kenya and South Africa. And this may be because in Kenya and South Africa, they have really widespread use of mobile money. Whereas in Nigeria, the last EFINA nationwide survey found that in 2018, found that only 3% of Nigerian adults used mobile money. So we think that it's really widespread access to digital financial services via mobile channels like mobile phones is really critical for financial inclusion, and also provides sort of access and resilience in crises like these. And I think we saw when lockdown was lifted in some areas and we saw a big sort of rush on bank branches, that was evidence that our digital financial system is not where we really would want it to be. So I think that this really underscores the need to accelerate digital financial services. I think there are a few things that we can be doing. In context of the crisis, I think we need to really think about how can we rapidly onboard people into the system, including as we're thinking about either governments or private sector groups distributing various forms of aid. How can we start to do that via mobile money and digital channels? And if somebody's coming to collect, cash transfer of food, for example, that's a good opportunity to register them into the formal financial system so that they can start receiving those transfers digitally. I think EFINA is going to be continuing to work with stakeholders to figure out how do we need to really innovate in this period. And so thinking about things like fintech, which has a lot of opportunity, but we need to sort of work together to continue to grow fintech offerings that are relevant and useful and sort of safe for Nigerians. Another thing that we're thinking about is agent networks. So for people in areas, particularly where there aren't bank branches, to be able to access digital financial services and mobile money, they need agents in their community to help enroll them into the system, to do cash in and cash out, and help with transactions. And so during this period, EFINA is coordinating with partners to both help agents kind of operate safely during this period. Also, we're conducting some additional research on agents specifically so that we can provide information to the industry on that. And we're also looking at ways agents can even be part of a crisis response. As an established network of trusted partners, there's an opportunity for agents to play a role in distributing kind of a humanitarian response, even potentially information or medical supplies in their communities.
Well, actually, across the 8 themes that your survey considered, which parts of Nigeria would you say were most impacted by the financial shocks occasioned by COVID-19? And did you observe anything in terms of gender differentiation?
Yeah, so for this survey, we didn't do, because of the kind of sampling, we couldn't do a deep analysis by state the way that we've done with some of our other pieces of research. We already knew that in Nigeria, financial inclusion levels really vary widely by region and by state. So for example, in Kano State, about 75% of adults financially excluded in 2018 when we measured, which is significantly higher than in some other areas like Lagos. So in terms of, I suppose I would say in terms of regional impact, we weren't able to do that state level analysis with this data, but we anticipate that given what we already knew about financial inclusion in different regions, that there's potential for even more challenges in some areas, particularly in the Northwest and Northeast zones, where financial exclusion rates had already been much higher.
So much for joining us this morning on The Morning Show and sharing more information with regards to your findings from this brilliant survey.
Thank you very much indeed.